Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. So today inshallah we're gonna try to build a little something. Okay, so we have discussed in the previous video, I guess, databases and we have discussed these things here, whatever this thing is. We have represented this as some tables in our database, which we are gonna do just later. Just be patient, you are gonna understand everything inshallah. So here we have students and attendance status. So we have students to attendance and attendance status to attendance. If you understand this, just understand it the way I explained it, that's enough for now. So this is a relationship between student and attendance and the attendance status and the attendance. So the attendance here has the primary key of this student table here, but it does not have it as a primary key, it has it as a foreign key because it's not its key, it's the student's key. The same thing here. So attendance status here, actually if I'm gonna follow the thing, so let's just make this attendance. Yes, that's take and attendance status. So we are following like a rule or something. So we have attendance and attendance status. Here attendance itself is a table, and each table, like we have said before, has a primary key, and this attendance status has the primary key of attendance, but it doesn't have it as its primary key. It has it as a foreign key because it's not its key, it's the attendance's key. You feel me? Exactly. So let's go on. So we have the database here. Let's go over it through this. Let's go through it from here again. So we have the database visual system. What does this database have, or how does it represent itself? We can understand it as that. So we have students, we have attendance status, we have attendance. First of all, let's just discuss some rules when you have the SQL file, for example, and you want to execute it. You want to have a database based on what you have in that SQL file. So let's just imagine this is the SQL file. First of all, if you're gonna have a table that has a foreign key of another table, you have to have the first table after this one. For example, we have the students table. It has a primary key, which is a foreign key in this table. So the attendance is using the student ID as a foreign key. The student ID is the primary key of this student table. Okay, students table actually. So let's just follow the rule again and let's delete this S here. It's bothering me. So let's hit X and delete it. So we have students table, attendance table, and attendance status. Like I've said, you have to put the student table before the attendance table, or before the table that is using its primary key as a foreign key, like you see here. Yeah, I have actually made a mistake. It's the attendance that uses the primary key. Okay, let's just do this and do this. Okay, so this is the right thing. Yeah, that was correct. I just messed it up. So here we have the student. The student is the one who is giving its primary key as a foreign key, and here we have the attendance status table, which has a primary key that has been taken by the attendance, or that has been acquired by the attendance as a foreign key, which is what this table explains. For example, if we said that a table can explain something to us, this table could explain that it has a name of attendance, it has a primary key of attendance ID, which is an integer, and it's auto incremented because you know what we have talked before. If you don't know what this auto increment means, I'm not gonna explain it again. I didn't actually quite explain it well, so you can Google that. You have student ID, we have status ID and student ID as foreign keys. You can have other things in a table other than foreign keys, but this table has only this. Okay, so like this one, for example, the student ID, the student table has a student ID, a first name, a last name. Okay, so it has an ID which is a primary key. Okay, and it has other things like var characters which are first name and last name. And the same thing with attendance status. It has a primary key which is status name, which is a varchar. Okay, so like the attendance status, it has a status ID, an integer, and it has a status name which is a varchar. Okay, so are the primary keys, like if you have noticed, there is a rule here. They are integers and they are auto incremented. You can make primary keys from varchars if you want, but we are not doing that here. So we are just gonna learn and stick to focusing on only what we are gonna need. So I have actually made some notes for myself because it's been a while for me since I've touched this project, even just for recording it. So in this video we're gonna try to make this. Okay, let me just read all of this, and then I'm gonna go ahead and explain something if it's not clear enough. So I'm just gonna go explaining everything I read. Okay, so in this video we're gonna try to make a simple app that works with what we have summarized so far. We're gonna make the UI, connect that to a DB that we are gonna create, and try to show that data to our user first, and then try to work around it and manipulate it from our app. I'm gonna tell you what this means if you didn't understand it, so just stick with me. So you could think of our user interface here as a middleman between us and the database. So, or like people call it in these days, APIs. Make sure to Google that exactly. So in order for us to start, we need to ask some questions. Okay, we always need a question to get started. So, or have a problem to fix. If it's too large of a problem, we need to break it down. So we need questions. Alright, now let's review our problem again and get ourselves some questions. Before reading this, I'm gonna explain what I've just read. Okay, so this first thing in this video we're gonna try to make it. Okay, we're gonna just try to do this. Basically, we're gonna make something, a UI and a database. We are gonna try to connect those and try to create some data. We are gonna, for example, we're gonna make a simple application that stores students, like you have seen here, and the database, so we can connect that to our UI. The UI basically is just some widgets, buttons we can click on and give. It's just a way for us to like, it's something that takes in the data but it doesn't store it, so we need a database to store it. Okay, so it's just an interface like that. So you could think of our user interface as API. So if you know what API is, you probably gonna understand what I mean, but logically you're not gonna know what API is if you didn't understand this stuff, or if you understand API you should know what I'm talking about. So just make sure you Google that. Okay, so in order for us to start, we need to ask some questions. We always need this question. Okay, so this part here I added for everyone. Basically I'm targeting everyone with this lines here, even for myself, because sometimes you have a problem even just to start something. And in order for you, I know I've talked about this before in previous videos and stuff, but repetition is good because it sticks on your mind. Okay, because if I have not repeated it, for example, long enough, your mind is not gonna think that it's important, so you need to repeat it enough so it can memorize it. So as Muslims, for example, if we wanna memorize something like Quran, for example, we need to repeat it again and again and again and again until we memorize it. So that's how you memorize stuff. You repeat it again. Because, for example, let's just say if you didn't repeat something long enough, you actually don't think it's important. And because I am the one who is trying, for example, to teach you something here, I have to repeat the important stuff so you really think it's important. Okay? So I'm just gonna report this. Anytime you have a problem, even if you think you have broken it down enough, but you can't get started, you need to break it more enough. You need to break it more. For example, you have broken the problem, for example, enough, so you could, for example, you know now where to start, but you are lazy just to start your computer. Okay. That's actually the problem I'm having these days. So I just say I'm gonna turn on the computer, fix the mic, fix the things, and start to record the videos, read the notes I have made for myself, and then go on. Okay, so let's just not talk about me anymore, and let's move on. So now you know that I'm gonna repeat it again, so you know it and comprehend it well. You need to break your problem enough so you can actually do something, because if you break it enough, you're gonna have something to start with, and if you do that thing well, you're gonna have the motivation to continue. And by the way, you don't need motivation to start something, you just need to start something and get something done in order for you to continue. I have read this in the this comes deep within you. For example, I've read this in a book. I've read so many books. It's the motivation myth, I guess. Yeah, it's the motivation myth. So myth is something that people believe in, or something that, it's something that people believe in, but it's not true. That's a myth. And people believe that they need motivation in order for them to start something. Me saying us, which means I still believe it, so I need to read the book again. Actually, you just have to complete it. I didn't read it, the whole book. So complete a table that shows all the students on the TV. Okay, so this is the task that I have come with when I was writing this script. So some of these tasks are just create a table that shows all the students on the DB. So this is about the UI here. Okay, so this is about the UI. Okay, this is within the UI, and the UI stands for user interface. Delete this line. Okay, so create a table that shows all the students on the DB. Create a form to add a student, another to update or delete a student. Okay, so here's a note. Think about the above a little bit. So that's CRUD. Create, read, update, and delete. So the read here is the table. Okay, if you don't know what this means, and that means if you don't know what I just said here, that means you don't know what CRUD is. So just Google this one. So go and type in what's CRUD in development or in software development, and you're gonna see that it has something to do with the database, and it has something with the operations we do in databases, or with databases, or with applications and software in general. So we create things, we read things, we update things, and we delete things. This is, for example, the ultimate things that you can do to a database or to data in general. So you can create it, read it, update it, and delete it. You can't do something else with it. You can have stuff for learning. Okay, so we are gonna face another problem. So we do want to store on each student. Okay, so what do we want to store in each student? That's a question. Okay, so name, pictures, age, parents info, address, email, etc. So because we are making a dojo system, or a martial arts dojo management system, we are gonna store data on students, and this data is being represented not just as a collection of data, it's broken down in itself. Like I've said before, problem solving, break down your problem. For example, each student has a name, so we are gonna store that. Each student has an age, so we are gonna store that. Each student has a picture, or has to take a picture and give it to us in order for us to store that. We have a parent's info, or each student has I don't think each student has a parent. Okay, so parent info or contact info. Let's just update this, so some people don't get depressed just by watching our tutorials. So let's do contact info. Address, email. So these things each student have, and we want to store those. So let's just think about it like that. We want to store some things on our students. Okay, we want to have things on them. I think like I am a criminal right now, that when for example, somebody has an empire like we have in this country, wants to have something, it's politics, right? You do understand what I'm talking about when someone wants to have something on someone to like to control him or to handle him, if you may say so. So we're gonna deal with problems as they come along the way. Okay, so these lines here, I'm gonna leave you to read them. I don't know if you're gonna understand them. If you don't, you don't have to. But if you have watched tutorials on YouTube enough, you're gonna know something, okay? That most of the teachers or people that teach code in YouTube, for example, or actually in every platform, I have seen this. I've actually downloaded some courses from other platforms as well, so I have learned using those myself. But you see, and you notice something when, and you do this either by having experience with tutorials or by watching a course of someone who has actually a camera to record him while he teaches, and that's you've seen him watching like watching a second screen besides him, and that's correct. He is using, for example, two monitors, one to teach you the code and one to in order for him to see the code or notes that he made for himself. So, and I don't do that here in this course because not because I'm a genius, but my monitor is not working. But that's good. That's actually taught me a lot of things, so I'm just gonna go with it, even if after I fix my monitor, inshallah, I'm just gonna go with it because it makes me practice my problem solving skills. Even that I fixed the problem before, it actually makes me think about solving it in a new way, or a new taking a new approach to solve the problem, and I like it. It makes my brain work, so I'm gonna go with it. I love it. So, and what I was trying to say here in this line, so why I'm saying that because I can't just anticipate every problem. Okay, when I was building the program the first time, I wasn't journaling the things that I have been doing, so I don't actually remember the order in which I have built stuff. Okay, so let me just give you that. So here I'm gonna try to build it as if I'm building it in the first time. So if, for example, if I'm going to use some code from the other project, which is the one that is complete, I'm just gonna, for example, take something that I needed to Google stuff and research in order to solve, and I actually have some of those just picking and sticking and showing in my mind right now, like that attendance combo box that we have in the attendance tab widget, which is actually, it's like if I compare between the things that I've done in the project, that's the one that has given me confusion. It's not hard. It's actually it took just a couple of hours to fix it, but it took days of procrastination just to get into fixing it. So that's the one. So I'm gonna try to show you how to solve those things, but because it's about time, and actually I think everything is about time. For example, let me tell you what I mean by everything is about time. For example, if you want to fix a problem, you sometimes have time as the only way to, for example, to set it as hard or easy. It's how, for example, it's how you calculate or how you say that something is easy or hard. And for example, when you do, for example, something that is hard for people in less time, they tend to think like you're genius or something. Like programming, for example, most people don't program, especially I'm talking about my environment. Most people don't program here, so they see you typing this stuff in the keyboard and it just works, I think you're like some kind of a genius and something like that. But yeah, that's what I mean by that. So time is actually not the thing that teaches you with time. Okay, so let's just not be crazy anymore and let's get this done. So enough talking. I've talked 20 minutes of talking when I'm gonna build a project. Okay, so let's just move to building stuff. Okay, let's exit this. It's been a long talk. I'm not gonna edit it, by the way, so we just have to listen to the whole thing. But like we have said before, we need to make a UI. So let's start the designer. Okay, that's something if I turn on to edit this, but let's just start the designer. Okay, let's get started. Where are you, Mr. Designer? Here it goes. 4 gigs of RAM. It's working. So click in main window 2 times. Double click, actually, that's what people call it these days. Okay, so property editor, we have some things like property editor and widget box, and if you don't have these things showing in your windows, or if you have a lot of things showing in your windows, you can change that by going to view. So here is the windows or the views that designer has. So you can show widget box by doing this and the property editor by doing this. So I'm not gonna need the property editor, I think, so I'm just gonna put it right on the side, or close it if you want, and then you can just do this. Okay, so if you don't have these stuff in order to get them, okay, let me just put them in the side so they belong to the table. That's exactly what I wanted to do. And let's delete this menu bar. So if you don't understand a lot of things that I'm doing, just Google the designer or go to YouTube and see that. And the project, let's see, main UI. So if you don't understand something, just make sure you do some research on yourself. I'm not gonna teach you everything, not because I don't want to, because I actually don't know what you don't understand. So because everyone has his own case, we're gonna just go to this property editor first of all and change the main window to System Management or Dojo System Manager. That's an A. Exactly. That's how we do it. Okay, so first of all, we have said that we need something to show our students, or let's discuss something. So what do we have to start with? What do you typically start with when you do UI, when you build user interfaces? So for example, let me just tell you something. I'm not expert at UI or building user interfaces. You have said it before. Actually, I never had a job, so I don't know how people deal with this stuff. I'm not a designer. I don't have fun building these stuff, so it's easy. But yeah, because you have the designer, just place stuff in the window. But let's just discuss something. We want to have, for example, students, like we want to have a lot of things in one window, so we need to something to split or to make the most out of our window here. So we need something that's called widget box. You are gonna learn about everything I use just by using them. So try to learn how to learn using that method. So you don't ask a lot of questions, or you ask a lot of questions but you learn by doing or by using something. So let's just delete that again. What I have done is I have gone to containers and imported the tab widgets and grabbed it to my window here. If you don't want to do that, just go to filter here and put in tab widget. Okay, so tab widget, click it. Okay, if you click it, it doesn't appear in here. Okay, so if you notice something, when I make this big or small, the tab widget resizes as I do that, but you may not have the same thing. So like if you have noticed some things, I have actually done the layout of grid. So let's just break the layout and make it default so I can explain it. So we have the tab widget like we've said, but if we want to take and make your tab widget resize with your window, you need to make the layout grid. So go outside the tab widget, so go to the window, the empty place or the empty spot, and do layout of grid. Okay, so now we have a widget which has two tabs. We can add insert a tab after current widget and insert a tab after current widget, and we do insert before or after current widget. So there is before after widget or before after this widget. Okay, now you need to delete it. You can do page 2 of 7. You can hit delete, 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 and delete. Okay, so now you know how to do a widget, how to make a layout so it can resize with the window. That's good. Now you know how to delete and insert something before, some tab before and after the widget. Okay, this is how you're gonna win to learn. I'm just telling you this not because you're stupid, but some things you actually know, but you need someone to tell them to you just to comprehend them. Even though you think they are stupid, but if you really think about it, you actually need to talk about it. Okay, so that sounds stupid. That sounds crazy, I think, guys. So just okay. So the layout here, we have layout vertical, horizontal. You don't have to know all about these stuff to follow this course. So you just have to know what I am using when I am using it. So you know the why, you know the how, and you know the what. That's all you need to know. So tab 1, we actually don't like this title, so let's just change it to student, I guess. Inside the student, however, we can have a lot of widgets. Okay, we can have any widget that we want. Yeah, I can have anything that we want. So let's just delete this. So now you do know that you have the right to be crazy. Let's show you what you can actually do that makes this whole thing useful. So you have students, you can make this, for example, attendance. Where is the name? What can we name it? So it's page. Yeah, current tab text. Yeah, so let's name it student. You have attendance. Okay, but because we are focusing on the student, we are gonna delete both these titles. We are gonna tell this project that we want this to show, for example, students. This is some long names we are gonna use in this first tutorial, just in order for you to understand more of these things that I'm gonna do. So show all students. Here we are gonna have alter, delete a student, or let's just say create, delete, update student. Just these long names for the sake of understanding. So if you are somewhat of an intermediate, you can name them whatever you want. I'm not holding your hand, bro. Okay, so how many minutes have I wasted of your time? 28. That's great. So I'm not actually wasting your time. I'm teaching you stuff here. Okay, just go on with me. So how should we proceed from here? So now we have to fill in what these titles stand for. So show all students. So what's the best way to show all the students in the database? It's a table, exactly. So we need a table. So we have item views. We have a table view here. That's not what we want. We need a table widget, and that's, I don't know what that is. So let's just do table widget. So we have table view, table widget. Table widget is the one you want. So it's just this empty box. So if you click twice on it, you have the right to insert and delete columns or rows. We actually not gonna have to deal with rows. We are gonna use columns. Okay, so we have a column. We have, for example, something like first name. Have something like Okay, so if you click OK, it's gonna save your tables data as just with that. You can add, for example, last name, whatever you want. You can add age, birth date. Even that doesn't make sense because you have the age. So let's just delete it and go with enrollment number. So let's just do enrollment number. And a smart way to doing this enrollment number, if you know a little bit about databases by now, we are just gonna make it the student's ID. So because student's ID is the only thing actually that doesn't have a duplicate on it. So enrollment number has the same thing, so we're just gonna use that as the enrollment number. Okay, that's it. You're gonna notice something. Okay, let's just not talk about that. So layout, yeah, I'm making your brain hurt a little bit. So layout in grid again to make this table. Resize with the window that is with the tab widget that is resizing with the window as it going resized. Exactly. That's how you say it. Okay, now we have show all students. We have a table that we use to, or that can we give the data to if we have imported it from the database. So it shows all the students. Damn. Now we need to move to create, update, delete a student. So we have here first name, last name, age, enrollment number. So we have just got to think that this is all we have, for example, in the database about a student. So we are storing the first name, the last name, the age, and the enrollment number, which is actually being automatically created. Like I've said, we are using the student ID as the enrollment number because it's the only thing that doesn't have a duplicate. So that's that. So we only need to give it the age, the last name, and the first name because, like I've said, it generates the enrollment number or the student ID automatically. So we need to give it the first name, last name, age. Repetition is key, my friend. So let's create a student, or let's have a form to create a student. So we need to have fields that we can input the data into, and we need to have some buttons in order to tell the application, oh, I have actually give you some data, do something with it. So I'm gonna have some fields, although they are not called fields, they are called line edits. Exactly. So I'm gonna have some line edits in here. So if you think about it, this is a box. Okay, if you do form preview and, for example, plastic style, I like this style by the way. So if you do something like this, you give it data. Okay, you have just discovered a new trick in the keyboard. Look about that. Okay, I have to actually thought this works only on Chrome. Okay, that's a new thing. Okay, so I've actually clicked Control and the Tab key, and then it moves between those windows, but it doesn't actually do that in here. I have to click on those. Okay, so it doesn't work actually everywhere. So we have the line edit, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just think about that. Señorita. Okay, so we have the line edit. Let's change this line edit a little bit. Okay, what I mean by that, for example, each thing in our, let's just talk about this. For example, each thing about our window has something called the object name. Okay, and we are gonna have, for example, let's just talk about things. I don't only want to talk about the object name, but I want to talk about this property editor and what it has. Okay, for example, this property editor, let's just look at something. Let's visualize a little bit. Now if I click on the table, what do you see? Okay, let's do that again. Let's click on this tab or whatever. Let's click on the window. So this object name is main window. Let's click on the table. Okay, the object name is table widget, and we have all these properties that we can adjust for our table. For example, this enrollment name or this enrollment number is the last, for example, the last column. So we can do horizontal header visible. if we, for example, click this, it's gonna change. So this is a property on our table, and we can change it by clicking or by enabling or disabling that feature or that property. Now we have vertical header stretch last section. If we enable this, that's what's gonna happen. Nothing. Okay, let's just I actually don't think that's the good vertical header. Actually, it's horizontal header stretch last section. That's what's gonna happen. Exactly, enrollment number just got stretched. Astaghfirullah. Okay, so yeah, horizontal header stretch last section, that's enrollment number. Okay, so if you think about it, this property editor has some properties that we can edit from the property editor, but these properties can't only just be edited right here. This can be edited by the code. So if we are done, or after we are done with the UI, we are gonna use it in the code, and from the code when our class inherits all the properties, like we have talked about in the last videos, when it inherits all the properties from the UI, we can change them from the code. If you really think about it, it makes sense. It inherits the properties, so it has the properties, it has access to the properties, so it can add a property, it can edit, create, update a property. Exactly, so that's CRUD again in the code, ladies and gentlemen. It's not about databases anymore. Okay, so let's save this. Control S to save. I actually have confused C with S for a long time, so that's completely what they call it, irrational. No, it's completely, what the word has gone out of my mouth. I just have it in my head. Okay, jump to my mouth. It's irrelevant. Yeah, it's irrelevant, completely irrelevant. So let's just click on the line edit. So now we have the line edit in our property editor. We have changed our property editor to edit the line edits properties. Okay, so now to edit the properties of the line edit, we need to choose a property to edit. So we have the width. We can edit that by incrementing this or by decrementing it. We can edit the height, so we can make it 50, or we have 400 in here. Okay, so let's just have our line edits as that, and we have something special, or we have a property that I have interest in teaching you, which is the placeholder text. And let's see what this is gonna do to our line edit. So let's just make this line edit first name. Exactly, it does that. So if you hit preview again, preview in plastic style, exactly. So this has in its background the first name, but when I start to write my name, for example Muhammad, it disappears, and when I erase it, okay, it shows again. So now we have line edit. We know that we have something called placeholder, and we know that it's just a property among all of these properties, and there are actually properties that this property editor doesn't have access to editing. You have to edit those in the code, or for example, you have things that you can edit in the code but not from here, or it doesn't actually make sense to edit them from here. For example, if you have a loop, if you want to loop and edit something along the way, which actually I never did, but it just makes sense not to do it here. But you don't actually have a loop in here. You don't have a way to loop through changing a widget. But I don't actually want I can't imagine a scenario when you do that, but yeah, that's a problem. Yeah, I need to make something out of that. Okay, okay, let's not write it down. Okay, so we have first name as a line edit. We can have multiple line edits. We can just copy and paste, and then, for example, we have first name, last name, age, and enrollment number. We have first name. Let's have last name. Okay, you don't have to click it twice, you have to click on it and go to placeholder and change this first name to last name. This is the age. Let's just change this age. Let's delete it. Let's also delete this one, and let's make it birth date. Okay, so let's have this. Let's actually remove this. Let's have it as birth date. Okay, but we do not want to have it as a line edit. Here we have to have something like date line edit or something like that. Yeah, date edit. So this date edit itself is just a widget which has properties of itself. So its object name is the edit. So let's just notice something. When I click on copy and copy it in here, or copy and Control V to just have a copy of it in here, this object name sets a default value of itself and adds in a 2. If I copy it again, it's gonna add in a 3. Okay, now you can add this object name for yourself. You can name it Ahmed if you want. Okay, and in the code you are gonna have access to it by self.ahmed, not self.lineEdit. For it's not actually line edit, it's date edit, whatever you call it, by the way. Okay, so I've just done that to show you that you can change the object name. So when you code, you actually have an easy way to access those things. For example, in the long run, when you build a lot of, or when you have to build a large or a lot of applications, you are gonna have this naming convention in your head that once you name something on the designer, you don't have to come back to the designer and see what you named it before. And you are gonna have this problem, by the way, as time passes, so you're gonna know what I'm talking about. For example, you're gonna have something like first name, you're gonna name it, for example, for line edit first name, but you have forgotten what you have named it. So you're gonna come to the designer, open the UI and see what you have named it, and that's actually not the right way. So let's just say go Control Z to see that this changes to what it has been before. So save. Yeah, so actually I think it's enough for this video. I have to cut it right here for the 2 minutes. I don't want to edit the video, so I will just upload it and continue in the next video, inshallah. In the next we're just gonna complete building the UI until we have that CRUD we are talking about, and after that we are gonna build database and connect the both. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.